Silicon Valley has minted more than its fair share of millionaires and billionaires. And for the people whose lives were transformed overnight by the unfathomable amounts of capital that has flowed into the Bay over the past few decades, not to mention the massive explosion of wealth of cryptocurrency, one big question has begun to arise. What's next? How to create a world that doesn't just respect the technologists' power, but spawns a new generation that fears them as god kings. One man has a simple solution. Start with the Natalists. His name is Balaji Srinivasan, and he's one of the most upsetting people I've ever had to learn about. My name is Josh Borman.
I'm June Sternbach.
And this is Ill-Conceived, a podcast about Natalism. Well, but I missed you. I've missed you, you know?
I know. I've gotten so used to talking to you at least once a week, like voice chat or something, you know?
It's true.
Having that week off, it just felt wrong. There was something spiritually deep in my soul that was incorrect about that.
Yes, just this deep, deep sadness, you know?
Yeah.
But thankfully, those times of sadness are over. We have re-entered a time of joy.
Yeah.
I saw
had a
you
little
posted
bit of a break.
Yeah. I saw you posted a picture from playing baseball where you look like the extremely inspirational coach in a movie about like a teenage baseball team, you know?
Yeah, it like sort of worked out like that because I was wearing my Halloween costume because I was like closer to Halloween. So it was like Halloween costumes encouraged. And I was, a lot of people wore Halloween costumes, but in that picture, like the people around me were all wearing, we have team shirts now and everyone was wearing the team shirt. So I had like this really bright blue tracksuit on for my Halloween costume and everyone had that like brown shirt on.
Wait, so what was your costume?
I was Sensei Sergio St. Carlos from One Battle After Another.
Oh, okay.
The blue tracksuit, the white pants.
Sure.
Yeah, no, and but no, the way that like photo was framed just looks like I should be like a Christian coach. Like I'm about to give like a good godly speech about why God and Jesus is on our side and why we're gonna win this goddamn game.
Well, first of all, you wouldn't say goddamn game if you were a Christian.
Gosh dang.
Gosh darn, perhaps.
Gosh darn.
But it also could just be like a Friday Night Lights type thing, right? Where it's like, it's been a tough year for our team. And I know right now, going into the seventh inning, it feels like they've got us down, but
don't give up.
Tammy,
don't give up.
Tammy, I remember earlier this year when you fielded that play at shortstop, and I know you can do it again. We may be down 10 runs to 2.
We did. We weren't down at this point, but we did have like a moment where we had like not me. I didn't give it, but someone give like an inspirational speech, and it was perfect. It was like the exact way you want to end out a baseball season. You know, it felt like a movie.
That's
life
fantastic.
A movie is what I'm saying.
For real. And
for real.
I feel like our podcast is a movie. I don't know how I feel about that transition, but I'm going to roll with it.
Some of our episodes are certainly movie length.
Yeah, feature length. That's true.
Yeah.
But, you know, now that we're back in the swing of things, there's only one thing to do, which is open up the world famous mailbag.
I can't believe the world famous mailbag wasn't around for a week. You know, like the main show, of course,
right.
Like that's a shame. But what did everyone do without the world famous mailbag?
Not to mention the bonus mailbag and chill episodes available exclusively at patreon.com/illconceived for a mere $5 a month.
And you get to be a standard baby.
But yeah, I think we, as always, got some really interesting emails. And we'll be reading some of those emails next week on the Patreon, specifically the stuff that people have sent us about Matt Iglesias. For this, though, again, just a couple interesting points that I wanted to respond to. And June, why don't you go ahead and take this first one here?
Yeah, absolutely. So this one is it's titled On Scotland's Highlands and Islands. This is from a listener named, I think it's pronounced Oren. Hey, Josh and June. One for you. One for you.
Let's go.
Good start to the day for you.
Absolutely.
And they continue, love the pod. Just wanted to offer a quick correction about your aside on the UK in your last episode, the Matt Iglesias episode. Highlands and Islands of Scotland are actually unpeopled due to a lengthy colonial and culturally genocidal project undertaken in the 1700s and 1800s by England and the Anglophonic Scottish lowlands called the Highland Clearances. They kicked my people out and replaced us with sheep, and told us to go invade Ireland, the Americas, and other of the UK's colonial projects instead. Womp womp. Thank you so much for that correction on this. I don't know too much of, especially like the indigenous history of different places in the UK and like some of the territories that they have. So that was a very, very good correction on that. That's crazy. A lot of this is like so recent still.
I wanted to bring this one in because I am always finding new and horrifying ways that the English just ruined the lives of various people on those accursed isles, whether, it's the Scottish or the Irish or whatever.
That's what's always crazy is because, like, obviously the British are one of the historically most evil empires of all time.
Right.
But like when you talk about it a lot of the time, it's like, oh, the way that they like handled India and like,
right.
It's like people always talk about like the like far away lands that they colonized. I feel like it's not always talked about. Like they literally colonized their neighbors.
Oh yeah,
like down the block,
and did a fucking genocide in Ireland. Yeah, It's not the sort of thing that I think Americans learn about in school. And I do feel like a little bit of an American idiot saying this, but I am always willing and happy to learn more about sort of what the long arm of colonial empire looks like.
Just when you think the British are bad enough, they just get worse.
The English specifically. It's always England. So we also have an email here titled Theme Song. Hello, and thanks for such an informative, thoughtful, and body podcast.
Yay.
But that's interesting. It's just hello. It didn't actually say June or Josh and June, which means that it's 1-0 in favor of me, which means that I win the week.
Another official win for you.
Incredible.
Bad days for me. This is the dark era. This is my dark age.
I was born into a very large rural West Virginia Mormon family, and whenever someone learns that fact about me, they light up and say, oh. That intrigued but othering reaction fits snugly into my experience of being Mormon. Christian, but weirdo Christian. Not the ones in charge, not real Christians, but not a threat, and definitely useful. When someone says I feel a little like I'm being studied. They're interested, but it seems like they want juicy tidbits about underpants sorcery. I'm sure they don't mean any harm, but as a West Virginian, I assume I'm not in on the joke. I don't give the eager ones any good stuff, so instead, I'll give it to you. All right, let's go. I'm not sure that you've addressed this, but many, many Mormons are employed by the government and their many agencies. Mormons don't drink or gamble or cheat on their spouses, at least theoretically, so they're less likely to be blackmailed or to be late and hungover. I didn't spend my whole life near the big rural family because my father was full-time enlisted active duty military. Both my uncles served in Vietnam. This deployment of Mormons makes sense to me, but it assumes that the weirdo Christians won't someday push back or serve their own agenda. It doesn't seem to be interrogated the way JFK's Catholicism was, for instance. As a political bloc, the value of tithing on a mass scale cannot be understated. Each member is meant to donate 10% of their income every month. As a kid, I was made to make tithings of what pocket change I had, and I usually did, out of fear. Usually. If you add up all the Mormons across America, it becomes a pretty big chunk of change. Also, I'm sorry if this information is available somewhere, or if this question has been asked and answered in another episode I haven't gotten to yet. What is the opening theme song? It's great, and I'd love to check out the artist.
I think that's one of our most common types of emails.
Yeah.
We'll get to the main part of this, but about the theme song. The theme song was made by my co-host and friend on my other show, Kill the Computer, Caleb. He is sort of like, Josh, you are the podcasting wizard. Caleb is sort of like the podcast theme song wizard.
Yeah, true.
He put that together for us. It's such a good beat. It's not really, I think as of right now, you can only really listen to it on the intro of the show.
Right. Yeah. I actually did reach out to Caleb the other day to see if he might be interested in trying to do a full length version. So yeah. I don't know. We'll see if maybe we can cook something up. I'm not making any promises here, to be clear. You can't force creativity, it's just got to happen. But it is a fully original theme song. And I'm going to add to the episode notes, theme song by Caleb, just so that people can know that, because he did great work and we want to, boost his profile.
Absolutely. But no, the main part of this email, though, that's like one of the things about Mormonism that is like very interesting to me, is because like a lot of Christians do sort of talk about Mormons as if they're the crazy ones. And like, obviously they are. Mormons broadly, it's like a fake made up religion. And really the only way we like kind of know that it's like a modern religion. It's like it was made up in the last like 100 years or so. It's like a new sect. So you can sort of point to be like, okay, we have like actual historic records of this like just happening. So, but it's like, it's odd for Christians to be also like in on that joke and make fun of Mormons, because it's like Christianity only doesn't really have that sort of reaction because it's really old.
Right.
So it's weird. It feels like a rocks in glass houses type situation, you know?
Well, I'm also interested with Mormonism, how it sort of has become more acceptable as a practice among like hardcore evangelical Christians in terms of something that you're willing to align with, really only over the course of the past like decade or two. You know, growing up, I remember being taught that Mormonism is like openly heretical and that it's something that you don't want to fuck with, right? Because the idea is that it corrupts certain fundamental principles of Christianity in a way that is both heretical and unacceptable. And so you just need to keep your distance from it. But I think that because the political alignment between the LDS Church and the right-wing religious project more broadly, like that's grown closer and closer and closer. That also has, I think, resulted in more, I don't even know if you could really call it religious tolerance exactly, but at least the evangelical Christians are willing to let Mormons stick around.
The thing is a lot of these evangelicals care a lot, even despite believing in the afterlife and like just they think that shit's real. They care a lot about politics on earth. So I think they find that very convenient that they can basically weaponize a whole state sort of in their direction, in the way that they've sort of aligned themselves with in the last decade. I feel like I could be wrong, and maybe it's just because I am still rather young, but I feel like everyone's introduction to like Mormonism across the country, beyond it just being sort of like an oddity, was Mitt Romney when he ran for president and became the nominee in 2012.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's like a rather new introduction still to this country. Like I know someone who's ex-Mormon, and she's told me a lot about it, and it's like some of the stuff that they believe is crazy, and like the average person just doesn't know about it.
And I think there was something about that 1-2 punch of both Mitt Romney and the Book of Mormon. Right, the musical, I mean, the Book of Mormon on Broadway. That was this cultural inflection point, and I think ever since then, LDS being, I don't know if you want to, whatever it is that you want to call it, like a legitimate religion or something that is seen as more than just a curiosity, I guess. It has been the case since roughly that time.
And it makes sense. I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm assuming it's still a growing religion.
Well, yeah, because they proselytize. They proselytize like crazy. I don't know if you get the Mormon missionaries in your area, but those guys are no joke.
Back up in Wisconsin, definitely saw that. Haven't seen it in Chicago. Actually, no, you know what? I was waiting for the bus once, and a couple of Mormons drove by on some bikes, and they're like, "Hey, do you want to?" And I'm like, "Just
do you want to go to church?"
No,
sorry,
no. They were wearing their fucking suits and everything. They all looked like all clean, but no, like they also get every one of their growing members to tithe 10%. Right. So it's like, it makes sense that they have all this like capital and power, because they like literally have, they have so much money. They have so much weight to throw around at this point.
And I think when we sort of shift our focus back onto the religious side of natalism, I would like to do an episode or two even about Mormons and Mormonism and how the LDS Church is explicitly natalist. And that at its core, the entire point of the thing is to grow as quickly as possible, both by converting and birthing as many people as possible.
Yeah, just on a pure gut check, just pure guess on my end. If I'm not looking at the numbers, but I feel like in the United States, the religious affiliation with the highest birth rate is probably Mormons, if I had to take a guess.
It's Orthodox Jews.
Shit. Okay, that also makes sense, though.
Yeah.
That also makes sense, because Israel, I think, if I remember correctly, Israel has the highest birth rate in the world right now. That's not like somewhere in Africa. Like in terms of...
Yeah, I think in the industrialized, like developed world. Yeah. It's the very, very, very religion. Because again, it's that intersection between religiosity and this idea that there's a moral imperative to grow.
Yeah,
and
populate the earth.
Exactly. And I guess to the point of moral imperatives and, things to do with why reproduction is encouraged, we might as well get to today's topic. A man known as Balaji Srinivasan.
This guy is a real fucking weirdo. This guy, he's been one of these guys that I feel like everyone vaguely knows about. Everyone's heard the name. Everyone has seen a little bit about him. And I've done an old episode, probably maybe 9 months ago now. I did a different episode, 2-parter, where we talked about this guy a little bit. But it's just the depths of this guy, the depths to his strangeness and odd beliefs, and just I would even say evil to an extent. It's still so unknown to me. You've tortured yourself putting this episode together, if I had to guess.
I mean, I think that was part of why the episode had to wait another week to go out. Last week was not an amazing week for me. And on top of having to do research about this incredibly strange and rather evil guy, I think it was all a bit much, but I'm doing great now. My question for you, June, is you had said that you talked about him and sort of his ideas a little bit already on Kill the Computer. So what is your understanding of this guy and his deal?
So his whole deal is that he is one of these, and I don't even think he's one of the richest people out there, but he is one of these big believers that there will be a point in our time, very soon probably, where democracy, state-based democracies will start to fail, and that power will be ceded to essentially what will manifest as, he calls them network states. I think he coined that term. What states will be in the future will be hyper-capitalist technocracies ran by basically people like Elon Musk, billionaires, rich people that put together their own societies that you can opt in or out of in theory.
Right. In putting together this episode, I watched a fair bit of his stuff about the network state. I even tried to read through the book that he's written, which is also available online. I will tell you just straight up, it was tough going because
Really?
Not only is it all insane, it's also very poorly written. So it's not just that the ideology itself is repulsive, it's also that more often than not, you have no idea what it is that he's actually saying.
Yeah, in prep for this episode, I listened to that fucking weird speech he gave in Dubai.
Yes.
The Bitcoin speech in Dubai, which is just a triple hitter of odd stuff. Network state speech by Balaji in Dubai about Bitcoin states. Just fucking absurd. I literally screamed when you linked that to me. I was like, there's no fucking way that this is real. There's no oh God. But no, I listened to that and it's just looking at his presentation too. It's this dude has never put together a good presentation in his life. All the text on that document, this is just nitpicky on my end, but a good presenter doesn't put 300 words per slide. That's not what you do.
And it's also he's only ever had one idea. This is a classic one idea man. And we are going to be talking throughout this episode about his one idea and the way that he has sort of pitched it toward the natalist crowd. Because that was the thing that really surprised me, was that although Balaji did speak at Natalcon, which of course we just did that episode about, both in 2023 and 2025. And even though the way that he made his fortune was on technology that is about getting pregnant at the end of the day, right? Genetics.
Yeah.
He does not himself seem to care that much about natalism per se, one way or the other. However, the reason that I still think it's worth talking about him today is that he presents a vision of a future that is very closely aligned with what a lot of other natalists do want. People like Elon Musk, for instance. Even though what you're going to hear today is going to be, by turns, bizarre and inexplicable, I think that understanding what these people are saying and where they are coming from is very important, so that the next time you hear about somebody talking about shit like this, you'll know where it's coming from and why it's stupid.
Yeah. And that's also sort of the thing, is there are so many people like Balaji that are sort of adjacent to and in these natalist crowds, because if they can pitch off their ideology to some of these people, they know that this crowd gets a lot of cachet and a lot of reach, not necessarily in these speeches at Natalcon, which I don't think his 2025 speech was online, which was very odd to me. I don't think you can watch Balaji's most recent speech.
Not his Natalcon speech. No, just
which
his 2023 speech.
But no, these people are accepted in very similar crowds of pretty much every type of person we've talked about throughout the history of this show so far.
Yeah, as far as I'm concerned, anybody who would accept an offer to speak at Natalcon is probably worth talking about on this show.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about his upbringing, his background, right? So Balaji Srinivasan was born on May 24, 1980, and was raised in Nassau County, Long Island, just east of Brooklyn and Queens. And both of his parents were doctors. They both immigrated from India. His mom's name is Bhavani, and his dad's name is Mani. Now, I was able to find a little bit of information about both of them, but not much. They don't really have much of an online footprint. But Bhavani did receive like a commendation from some Chamber of Commerce or something out on Long Island. That's like the best biography I could find of her. And she got her medical degree and original license in Mumbai before moving. And then after moving to New York, she got another degree from Stony Brook University. Mani, on the other hand, Balaji's dad, he went the government route and actually served as a medical bureaucrat in the State Department. And there is a PDF, which, as with everything, I've linked down in the show notes, of a 2006 issue of State Magazine, which is the magazine of the State Department for like people who have worked in state.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Neither did I. But he wrote an article in it about tuberculosis. And in that article, it cites that he was, at least at the time, the chief of the Office of Domestic Programs in the Office of Medical Services. So,
good opportunity for conspiracy theories here.
Yeah, I know. They're really... But I think the thing about his like State Department connection, it's less interesting for questions of like the deep state or conspiracy theories or whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's more interesting just because it's like, oh, this is not just some guy who came up out of nowhere, right? Like his parents were both doctors. They both had good money and his dad was politically connected. And this is relevant. And he never talks about this.
I wouldn't have guessed that. I just would have assumed he was just one of those guys that and this is very foolish of me because so many of these guys had very well-off families, but I just would have assumed he got rich, very lucky sort of thing, and then sort of now does insane shit, gives insane talks to insane people. But no, he had like a good upbringing, very privileged upbringing. Yeah. Should have turned out normal. He didn't.
Nope, sure didn't. Oh, well. Also, I will say, the fact that he was born in 1980 is crazy to me because that motherfucker does not look 45 years old.
No. To me, I mean, I would have guessed at this point he's probably 60 from the little bit I've seen of him. But no, he's not much older than, I mean, he's a colleague. He's a millennial. He's an
elder. He's an elder millennial. Yeah, he's like right on the cusp. But yeah. So Balaji doesn't really talk about his childhood much at all. Instead, he prefers to sort of do this myth-making of like being the great man who came up through Stanford and you know, shaped the world as a great man of industry, right?
Of course.
But he did do an interview with the Wall Street Journal where he talked a little bit about what his experience of primary school was like. So why don't you go ahead and read this quote here, June?
Being the only brown kid among hundreds of people, lots of kids would gang up on you and call you Gandhi. And you could say, that's not an insult, and run. But they'd just chase you. I learned that the first guy who comes at me, I need to hit him. Bam! With the book. And just act crazy so the other guys don't jump on you. Later, at the principal's office, the assailants would have crocodile tears about how the little Indian boy had started the fight. Their parents knew the principal, and he'd say, Balaji, why did you attack young Jimmy and Jamie? I learned early on that you have to stand up for yourself, that the fix is in, the state is against you. Oh, no. Oh, so his basis for his ideology is that he was bullied in school?
Yeah.
Come on. That's as shameful as an adult. That's as shameful as like having your opinions changed because of mean Twitter replies. like having your ideology shift because people dunk on you on Twitter. That is like a shameful thing to like admit.
At the same time, though, I will say there is something very interesting to me about this, speaking as somebody who was also bullied a little bit in school, like for him, it's not just about being bullied. It's also about being the outsider, right? It's about being the brown kid in a white school and seeing how even if your family is well off and well connected, which they clearly were, you are still going to run up against certain institutional roadblocks that are sort of coded into the power structure of this country.
Which is an absolute truth. I mean, that is throughout, I think, pretty much any country's entire history, especially the United States. I mean, like him talking about how, like, oh, the brown kid, it's the brown kid again. Like, that is a real experience. That is, so many people have different experiences exactly like that. So, I mean, that's coming from a place of truth. Absolutely. I do not doubt that he experienced that all the time. I mean, that sucks. That really does suck for him to go through.
But then to take it and come away from it being like, yeah, man, the state doesn't care. That to me feels deeply disingenuous, particularly if your fucking dad is high up in public health at the U.S. Department of State.
Yes. See, this is what I mean by perfect opportunity for conspiracies. Like, this is just sort of one of those convenient lies, right? Like, he's using this experience to be like, oh, this is how you build sympathy for me. And then this is now where I'm at now. This is the logical end conclusion of all of this, which, like, I don't think he was like 15 years old and came up with the network state or whatever. This is like post adult him putting these two things together to create a story.
Absolutely. And that's the thing, right? Is you see this throughout. One of the things that he is good at, and I guess I use good here in a qualified sense, but still that I do think he is capable at least.
He's skilled.
Skilled at, thank you. That's a better way of putting it, is storytelling. It's coming up with a narrative that points toward certain things and a certain idea of the future. And I don't find his rhetorical or presentational style particularly compelling, but a lot of people do. And that, I think, is because of his prowess with narrative form.
Yeah, it's interesting that, like, using this very valid, like, life experience and then coming away with it sort of as like what we need to do is have the right people in charge.
Yeah.
And apparently the right people in charge is just no state. And in fact, it is very wealthy people that he also happens to be, and a lot of his friends are.
Exactly. It's like, we just need something where I'm the one who's in power and I have more of it.
Yeah. With less regulation and everything.
And to be clear, this is not a new idea. I mean, this goes back as far back as capitalism does. And a lot of the stuff that he talks about is indistinguishable from, like, Ayn Rand and the idea of these prime movers, right? They're going galt and removing themselves from the proles and creating their own elevated society. He thinks of himself as being better than everyone else.
I mean, I feel like he's a libertarian in the truest modern sense, at the very least.
And, you know, the place that he ends up going to college is, I think, a place that probably installs even more of that ideology in him, which is to say, Leland Stanford Junior University. Might have heard of it.
Oh, no. Yeah.
And he does his bachelor's at Stanford, gets a BS in electrical engineering in 2000. And then, per his LinkedIn, he also completes an MS in chemical engineering in 2003, as well as a PhD in electrical engineering, in 2006. So that's, you know,
smart dude.
Is pretty, I mean, you know, you can't be totally fucking stupid and get into Stanford for the most part.
Yeah.
You have to prove that you have some aptitude, particularly for the engineering programs there, which are among the most rigorous in the country.
Yeah, all I know is the little bit I've looked into engineering, I don't know shit. Like that, to me, that is way above my head, and I do concede that on some level you have to have a fair bit of knowledge, especially mathematical knowledge.
What I will say, though, about Stanford and the way that Stanford works is that if you are on the sciences side of the thing, you pretty much never have to interact with the humanities. There's a little bit of, like, core requirement. There are certain things that you do have to do. But if you don't particularly want to have to study, say, actual political philosophy, you don't have to. And I think that the more of his stuff you read, particularly if you do have a grounding in the humanities like I do, and you're like, wait, that's not what that word means. You understand it better when you understand that he was at Stanford doing strictly sciences, basically, for what, a decade, right? Basically,
least,
96 to 2006.
We still see this today. There has been, especially in the engineering track, a lot of people like that. And this is also pushed doubly by, I think, right-wingers, too, just as an attack on liberal arts college. But this is, I feel like, part of the problem why like humanities and liberal arts colleges and degrees need to remain.
Yeah.
I'm sure you heard growing up all the time, maybe even while in school, that like, oh, like people would be like, oh, I wish I didn't have to do a fucking literature class. It's a waste of my time. And it's like, no, like this shit is like formative. This shit actually like gives you a different perspective and doesn't like make you as much of a fascist, I feel like, because if you go into like higher education and all you get is like the technical aspect of it, and like the like utilitarian aspect of it, it can bring you to very strange places ideologically. Because if you think purely in utilitarian purposes, I mean, why would you think of humanity any different?
Well, and to the point of very strange ideological places, I mean, that's exactly where Balaji ends up, because everybody knows that what you do once you go to Stanford, whether you complete your degree or drop out, is you go ahead and found a company. And that's exactly what he does. He co-founds a company called Counsyl. That's spelled Counsyl.
Very clever. He changed one letter.
Yep.
That's very clever.
And that's with his brother Ramji, who dropped out of a Stanford MBA program and works there as CTO, Chief Technical Officer, through the year 2012. And I was able to pull some information about their financials. Their first seed round was in 2010. They raised $2.2 million. And then their Series A, which was later that very same year, raised $7.5 million. But what's worth noting, you know, this wasn't one of those cases where it was like they were able to get some money in on the ground floor, but then, you know, fizzled out or couldn't find an exit. No, they had a very successful exit. Counsyl was eventually acquired by a biotech company called Myriad Genetics. That was in 2018. The valuation was $375 million. So,
oh my God. So he was set.
Presumably so. I mean, I don't know how much of a stake in the company he had at that point, but assuming even, let's say, 5%, right? What's 5% of 375 million? That's like $18 million or something like that. That's
not a bad chunk of change for someone like that.
That's okay money. That's walking around money.
Yeah. So I assume what did his company Counsyl and then of course Myriad Genetics do? I mean, I'm assuming it has something to do with like, especially because of how you framed all of this up, it had something to do with like having children or birth or something to do with natalism, correct?
Yes, exactly. So Counsyl was a genetic testing company. I actually have here its mission statement. I was able to go on the web archive, you know, and find their website. And
amazing.
They have their mission statement there. And I'll just go ahead and read it to you now. Council's mission is to scale up the Jewish community's successful campaign of universal carrier screening for Tay-Sachs, which vanquished the disease by 2003. To do this, we seek to both make preventative carrier testing universally accessible and to use our resources to find cures and treatments for families suffering from genetic disease. The organization was founded by social entrepreneurs and philanthropists with the audacious belief that every child deserves a chance in life. It is something new, born of the realization that cutting-edge science and market forces can actually increase equality and promote social justice. It is a cause, a campaign to finally end the needless suffering of preventable genetic disease. And most of all, it is you. Call us idealistic, but we believe that everyone loves their children and will do the right thing when it comes to safeguarding their future.
Interesting. So it's basically a way, it's like looking at their kids or like the DNA to like before they're born, correct? Like is this before they're born?
This is before they're conceived. This is pre-pregnancy testing. Right?
Oh,
so
wow.
This is not testing embryos. This is not testing fetuses. This is testing parents for potential inheritable diseases that they may potentially carry in their DNA.
Okay, wow. That is, honestly, I did not know where Balaji came from. I'm surprised. I mean, this seems like a very, I mean, it can get into weird territories, like, with some like eugenics type arguments, especially when it's like, especially if you think about around this time, people were talking about finding the gay gene,
absolutely,
which doesn't exist, of course. So there's like some odd like possibilities here. But I mean, on the surface level, this is a very valiant sort of effort. This is a very valiant, I think, company. I wish I didn't have ulcerative colitis. That would be something that would be cool to like take care of. Not that you can; it's not curable, but like,
is it a genetic thing, ulcerative colitis, or is it just something that develops?
I think it's inherited from parents. It's like it is like genetics in that sense. So I guess the thing that sort of is concerning here with this company is like, do they offer solutions, or is it just like, hey, don't have kids or have an abortion type thing?
Well, it's not really any of these things. It's just testing. I've got actually a quote here. This is from an MIT Technology Review Innovators Under 35 profile, which they did in 2013 of Balaji. And I'll just have you go ahead and read this because it describes exactly what they do and why they do it.
Every year, 3 out of every 1,000 children are born with a genetic disease such as cystic fibrosis that did not afflict the parents, who most likely unknowingly carried a defective copy of a particular gene. If both parents carry a damaged copy, there is a 25% chance that their child will have the disease. For around $99 after insurance coverage, a couple's doctor can order a test from Counsyl, which will extract DNA from the parent's saliva or blood and sequence more than 100 different genes linked to recessively inherited diseases. If prospective parents both carry a broken copy of the same gene, then they can decide what to do: try to conceive naturally despite the risk, avoid conceiving, or use in vitro fertilization to conceive, and have doctors screen out embryos that carry the double dose of defective genes. Counsyl is now screening the parents in about 120,000 births each year. Okay. So it's just testing. It's just sort of like giving parents the knowledge, all the information that they could ever ask for before they have a child, which I think is like, that's fine. That's like a fine thing. Yeah.
And I would argue too, like it is important. I mean, the mission statement mentioned Tay-Sachs, and
absolutely.
Are you at all familiar with what the deal is with that?
I'm not actually at all. Never heard of it.
So Tay-Sachs is a inherited genetic disease that disproportionately exists within Ashkenazi Jews. And basically what happened was there were like Jewish community organizations that were like, there are so many people who have Tay-Sachs. This is a horrible disease, and we need to figure out how to get people to have less kids with it. And so they made genetic testing available, and couples who discovered that they both carried those recessive copies, the recessive alleles that had the deformation that leads to Tay-Sachs, they were then able to choose appropriately. And again, like screen out embryos that would carry the actual disease.
Okay.
And similarly, cystic fibrosis, I mean, that's
horrible. It's horrible.
That is the disease that I have.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where my parents did not know when they got pregnant with me that they both carried these recessive CF genes. Because how could they? It doesn't express unless you have 2 copies of the recessive trait. And the funny thing about CF too, and I sort of found this out when I was researching my family history, when you go back in my family tree a certain ways, you start seeing kids who like died when they were like 9 or 10 years old. And it's like, sure, back in the day, sometimes kids would just die when they were young. But then when you think about the fact that some of them probably had CF, it makes it a little different,
Oh my God. Yeah. I mean, to like know that sort of thing and to like have that knowledge, especially to prepare, like especially if the people do still want to risk having a child with those conditions, it's still good to like know and prepare. Right. Because like people, especially back in the day before, I feel like a lot of different illnesses were diagnosed properly or like taken care of properly before like modern medicine. I mean, like parents were probably really taken aback and didn't know how to prepare or how to take care of their kid at all. So it even gives them the like knowledge to even prepare for something like that.
Exactly. Yeah. You go in, if you do choose to like roll the dice, you should know what it is that you are going into. And that is what this testing allows for. Because the way that recessive diseases work is that they can hide across multiple generations. Because again, as long as you have one bad copy, one recessive copy, the trait won't express itself. And so many generations going back, it can continue to carry on that way. It's only once you get to the point where you have two people who both carry the thing that it ends up potentially manifesting as a symptomatic case.
Yeah. I mean, something like that, Alzheimer's, horrible disease, uncurable. It would be, I think it's very useful to like be able to like test for some of those things, because I think Alzheimer's is very similar in that way, where it sort of just like passes through generations and family and like will manifest in different ways.
It's a little different though, because something like Alzheimer's does have a genetic component to it.
Yeah.
But what Counsyl was specifically doing, it wasn't just looking for, here are things that you maybe have a tendency toward, but was specifically looking for examples of genetic diseases that happen when you have two copies of the bad recessive gene. So things like cystic fibrosis, sickle cell anemia, and stuff like that.
For sure. Okay, that makes sense.
So that's Counsyl, that's his company. Like I said, he gets a nice exit, and from there he moves on. He actually leaves Counsyl in 2012, well before the exit, and at that time he joins Andreesen Horowitz.
Ooh, big. Oh, I hate these people. Oh, Mark Andreesen, big evil guy. One of those conehead weirdos.
Big egg-shaped head. Yeah. Say more. say more about Mark.
I don't know too much of his history, but like these days, he runs Andreesen Horowitz. It's like basically a big financial company. They are involved in a lot of financing. A lot of he's an advisor to Donald Trump, I believe, still.
Oh, is he?
In this current term, yeah, he's very close with Donald Trump. That whole world. He also is very involved in a lot of like the online gambling scene. Like he's a big reason why we're seeing online sports gambling in particular, but just gambling as a whole, like Polymarket, all these different things. Not specifically Polymarket, but the proliferation.
I actually think he did fund Polymarket, if I recall correctly.
I'm sure he probably did. I don't think he's like the main person behind it, but he probably definitely funded like Counsyl, all these fucking things.
Hey, Editing Josh here. Mark Andreesen didn't have anything to do with Polymarket. I was wrong about that, but June was correct that Andreesen Horowitz was involved and is involved with Counsyl. They actually led their most recent fundraising round at a $300 million valuation.
So he is one of the like progenitors of evil of like the internet age that we see today.
Yeah, and the thing that blows my mind every time about Mark Andreesen was he was the guy who created Netscape. He's the reason we have the World Wide Web as we know it.
Oh, I forgot about that.
We didn't know how good it was to have an internet that was like just text and then one very low resolution GIF image of like a dog skateboarding.
Those were the days. Holy shit. So, I mean, Mark Andreesen, very influential, very, very big financier, one of the biggest in the United States.
And in the same way that these guys, like they have a thing and they get a big exit, the reason that Andreesen got his fortune in the first place was selling Netscape to AOL.
Ah, of course. Okay.
And the big thing that Balaji does after joining Andreesen Horowitz, or A16Z, as it is also known, is he refocuses a good bit of their like future growth strategy toward crypto. Because he's a big fucking crypto guy. He was in on the ground floor with Bitcoin and similarly was interested in projects that integrate blockchain shit.
So he's a big reason why there was this like huge financier shift towards trusting Bitcoin and like some of the early pumps, I would assume.
Yeah, and also like the whole Web3 pivot with Ethereum and all of that. He was a big proponent of all of that as well. Because, you know, when you are invested in something, such as Bitcoin, for instance, particularly if you had a strong early position, you're going to want to see that investment grow. And, you know, that's what he did. He's got the thing that all crypto guys have, which is that once you are in on that thing, you can only think of everything else in terms of how will this maximize my crypto position.
I mean, that's sort of the thing with crypto. And that's why it's very odd to learn about his early career, that he was sort of just like very, very well educated, started a company that is like very useful and good and like actual real technology that does something. And then then he ends up here and becomes like this weird crypto guy. Like that is such a weird shift. If you would have just given me, if you didn't tell me who this was and just told me about like where they were, I'm like, oh, this person is just like one of the leading like genetic scientists or something like that.
Right.
But like no, he's like a crypto fucking freak now. Like that's such an odd shift. But I mean, just he probably always had this like underlying libertarian ideology.
Oh, for sure.
And what crypto has done objectively is sort of give these libertarian guys sort of a dream and almost unlimited money in a sense, because of where a lot of these people got in very early. It was just like less than $10 for a while. A lot of these people got involved very early, and then very quickly went from 10 to 100 to 1,000 to 10,000 to 100,000. So they also, on top of already having all of this money, they, in some cases, 1,000 times their money.
And in the case of somebody like Balaji, I can only speculate how much of his wealth is held in like Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
But I would say it's safe to say that if he did get in on the ground floor early with Bitcoin, which it seems that he did.
2013.
That was when he became general partner over at Andreesen Horowitz. He was talking about Bitcoin before that, too.
Yeah.
And if you think about it in terms of getting in, like, even within a year or two after the original white paper, the amount of money he might have in crypto far outstrips the pretty decent amount of money he would have gotten from his exit when Counsyl got acquired.
If you had to make a guess, it would be a fair. I think you would have a good winning bet that he's made over $1 billion in crypto, at least.
Quite
easy.
It's very
easy.
possible. Again, we don't know, but it's certainly possible. Enough money that he doesn't need to worry about money. Let's put it that way.
Absolutely. And like another thing that like crypto has done for a lot of these people is get them closer, because they have sort of generated infinite money because they were just there on the ground floor. It gives them more of a belief that they can sort of orient the world away from democracy.
Yes. And I would say not just that. I think that because these people got so lucky early on and got to see an unfathomable growth in their own personal wealth that allowed them to shape the world in ways they previously hadn't imagined, they're like, oh, well, I can just fucking do anything.
I mean, yeah, with that much money, basically free reign to do whatever the fuck you want.
Not to mention, if you were that lucky on this particular thing, why can't you just take it and double down and go again, right? Like it should work.
I totally understand. I think it's insane. I would hope that if I was in a similar situation as these people, this wouldn't happen to me. But I totally get, as much as it sucks, why these people have gone completely insane because of this wealth that they have accumulated from things like crypto and Bitcoin.
But there's something still tenuous about it in a way, because the only reason anything has value is that we all agree that it has value.
Right.
And so similarly, whether you're talking about Bitcoin, Ethereum, Solana, any cryptocurrency, the idea there is that your fortune could theoretically vanish at any point if people decide that they don't see value in this thing anymore. Because for all of the rhetoric about how it's, so much better than fiat currency and it's durable and it's blah, 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 people have to agree that it's worth something. And so in 2013, Balaji goes to a talk at Y Combinator. Y Combinator is another startup venture capital fund and sort of ideas place. Basically, if you are somebody who's developing a product, piece of software, you can get a grant from Y Combinator to keep building your thing. And it's become a very, very powerful central hub for software more broadly.
Okay, gotcha.
And one of the things that they're known for is their lectures and roundtables. And like I said, in 2013, Balaji goes and gives this talk about what he calls Silicon Valley's ultimate exit.
So what do I mean by this? What do I mean by Silicon Valley's ultimate exit? It basically means build an opt-in society, ultimately outside the US, run by technology. And this is actually where the Valley is going. This is where we're going over the next 10 years. That's where mobile is going. It's not about a location-based app. It's about making location completely irrelevant. So Larry Page, for example, wants to set aside a part of the world for unregulated experimentation. That's carefully phrased. He's not saying, take away the laws in the US. If you like your country, you can keep it. Same with Mark Andreesen, right? The world is going to see an explosion of countries in the years ahead, double, triple, quadruple countries, right? Since the end of the Cold War, we've just been seeing them, burst up in all kinds of places. And some of the best will have lessons for all the rest. Singapore's healthcare system is an example to the rest of the world. Estonia actually has, digital parking meters and all kinds of things. We can copy those things without necessarily taking the risk. Let them take the risk, and then we can copy them. It amplifies voice.
So the idea here with the ultimate exit of Silicon Valley is sort of what you were saying a little earlier, June, which is at some point, these governments, these ossified institutions are going to break down and ultimately give way to a global society that is connected and governed purely by software.
Wow, that sounds like a fucking good. That sounds like a sick. It's a society ran on memes. That sounds fucking dope. No, but that's like kind of the insane thing about this is I feel like in like normal everyday politics, especially lately, it's something I've thought a lot about where it's like right wingers. I think they're sort of falling apart. The Republican Party in the United States is falling apart right now, but they had so much success in the 2024 election because they've sort of created and crafted out this parallel ecosystem and like information structure that was like really allowed them to sort of take control of pretty much all narratives for quite a long period of time. And like this belief is essentially the idea that if all of these Silicon Valley people stick together, what they're slowly currently doing is creating an alternative ecosystem that is outside of politics, the traditional democratic state-led politics. And at a certain point, they will accumulate enough money. They'll be competitive enough with the state that they will be able to essentially secede. Mm-hmm. They'll be able to secede and help probably destroy democracy. I think that's part of what the gamble is with like the exit of Silicon Valley is that they will have enough power and capital to essentially replace what is the United States. I think that is like the hope for someone like Balaji.
Well, and they're so clear that this is what they want too. But for some reason, around this time, like after he gave this speech, which I do want to note, everybody in like the tech world was going fucking crazy about this. They were like,
I'm sure
this
they were.
Is so cool. But there were a lot of people, like even in fucking Wired, which was back then was not the Wired that we know now, right? Back then, back in 2013, Wired was still very much just like a complete and total stenographer to the Silicon Valley people in power. Mm-hmm. There's an article about where the person writing is basically, well, he didn't really mean seceding.
No, he fucking did.
But like,
he absolutely did.
Maybe I think it's best if you just listen to the words that he says.
Yeah.
With it, we can build a world run by software. Here's some examples. 3D printing will turn regulation into DRM. It'll be impossible to ban physical objects, from medical devices to drones to cars. You can 3D print all these things, and there are entire 3-letter regulatory agencies that are just, devoted to banning goods. With, Bitcoin, capital controls become packet filtering.
Yeah, man.
It's impossible to do bail-ins if everyone's on Bitcoin, to seize money as they did in Cyprus or in Poland. With quantified self, medicine is going to become mobile. You're going to be able to measure yourself. With telepresence, your immigration policy is going to turn into your firewall. Double robotics is just the start.
Okay.
Any bots, these robots that you can control remotely, moving them around like a Doom video game. Soon they'll be humanoid on their side, and they're going to get pretty good. So you can be anywhere in the world walking around with a humanoid robot on their side.
Oh, nice.
And without paying a plane ticket. Drones, warfare is going to become software. Laws are going to become code.
This sounds like a parody.
Robotics is going to become automation. And property rights are going to become a network effect if you know about Bitcoin's smart property.
What the fuck is this guy talking about?
I mean, I know what he's talking about.
Right.
But like the thing is it's so like what the fuck, like this is such a like, to me it feels dystopian, right? Like this is a dystopian future he's talking about.
You're saying you don't want to have a humanoid robot that has you don't want your passport to be a firewall or whatever?
I don't want all warfare to be software. Like holy shit. Yeah, no, like to me, like, and this is the thing that like Silicon Valley was going crazy for this in the Obama years, because I feel like whenever, because I feel like the left and more broadly than just the left, but I think liberals, it's become very good politics these days to sort of shit on Silicon Valley and a lot of these like wealthy, powerful individuals. And every once in a while, you'll see like a Democrat be like, no, the Silicon Valley that's here today that sided with Trump, that still sides with Trump, they're not the Silicon Valley of the 2010s when Obama was around. And it's like, no, they were just as fucking crazy.
Yeah, no,
they were just...
The only difference is that at that time, Obama was in power. The mode of communication through which power was transmitted required speaking sort of with different signaling than is the case now. And yeah, I mean, probably that there were a lot of people working for these companies who would consider themselves to be fundamentally liberal or fundamentally progressive. Mm-hmm. But the people who are at the top, they've always been like this.
From their perspective, it's very techno-optimist insofar as they will become, they will reorient power entirely under their control. They will essentially become the new state, or lack thereof, under individual power.
For Balaji, then, he doesn't quite get there yet. 2013 was not the year that Silicon Valley performed its ultimate exit, but he stayed obsessed with this idea. He ended up being promoted at Andreesen Horowitz in 2015 to board.
After speeches like that,
I can see why.
On. Yeah.
He's just so compelling, right? And so lucid.
So many good ideas.
But he's promoted in 2015 to the board and then leaves in 2018 to become CTO at Coinbase.
No, of course. Yeah, that's on track for about what I would imagine he would do. Yeah. For people who don't know, somehow if you don't know, Coinbase being one of the like premier and first places that people go to for like crypto exchanges.
Yeah. And this is right at the beginning of the Web3 boom too, right? Mm-hmm. But oddly, he doesn't stick around. Mm-hmm. He actually leaves in May of 2019, just over a year, which again, this is purely speculation, but given that his resume doesn't show anything directly after that, and given that you're probably not going to leave fucking A16Z for another opportunity and then just leave after a year, I think he got forced out. I don't know why, but that's, again, pure speculation. I just don't really see how it would have happened otherwise.
I mean, that is very odd to barely be there for just a year. I mean, I could guess why he would like maybe be forced out or leave. Maybe it's because he I think, and we'll be getting to some of this more soon, but I think his dream of like this stateless libertarian future it begins on the ground floor with crypto. Mm-hmm. And I think he was maybe trying to pull his weight into like leading Coinbase and that sphere into that sort of realm. And I feel like people involved in Coinbase are like, nah, that's fucking crazy.
I think
that's my guess.
I think that's a good guess because Coinbase ultimately just wanted to be another exchange, whereas Balaji's visions, or you might say delusions, are much, much grander.
Of course.
And so he starts cooking after leaving Coinbase and sort of goes away for a little bit. He's still showing up on podcasts and shit like that, but he doesn't have like a job until 2024, where he pops back up on the map to unveil his dream project, the Network School.
Oh, God. When this was founded, it immediately popped up on my radar because not only is it associated with this concept of the network state, which he's a big proponent of, he launched the Network School with fucking Brian Johnson, that like guy who wants to live forever and like low doses estrogen because it like keeps your skin soft.
And we'll talk more in a little bit about both Network School and Network State, but just worth noting, like as it stands right now, this is what Balaji's entire deal is talking about the network state, the network school, and how to bring about the future that he wants. So, this is a podcast about natalism, and it's probably about time for us to talk about Balaji's connections with natalism.
Before we get into it, I love that Natalcon has sort of been like a grounding floor for us. I feel like since we've done it, I feel like everything is like, it's our ground floor. Get in on the ground floor. Let's get in at the base at Natalcon.
Yeah, but we're digging into the ideas of this movement, right? To the extent that it can be considered to have ideas. And I think that the network state idea that Balaji brings forth although it doesn't seem to be one that's very broadly adopted by the natalist community, is still one that's worth talking about, because I don't think they would have invited him back in 2025 if they weren't at least a little bit interested in what he had to say.
I think a lot of it for him is that he'll just take any opportunity to proselytize this to especially a crowd of people who I feel like in his mind can be like, okay, I'm going to have to get as many people on board with this crazy idea as possible. Why not go to this convention of very odd people with odd beliefs, which he of course has very odd beliefs too. But these people want to have a lot of children. I feel like he's sort of like, to be able to do a network state, I'm going to have people willingly moving to a network state that want to have children.
Or, establishing themselves within the network and then bringing those children in so that I can say the network state now has 100,000 residents or whatever.
Right.
But let's talk a little bit about what he said at Natalcon, because I listened to his whole speech so that you don't have to. So he opens his 2023 Natalcon speech by talking about the cost of raising a child, which he says is $230,000 for the entire 18-year lifespan until a kid leaves the home, and asks, can we reduce it? And he says that rich people aren't having kids because prices on everything are rising faster than everything else, and so it's financially difficult. So how do we fix this? Well, it's the network state. It's his one idea.
Come on. This guy, I mean, he is the actual platonic ideal of a libertarian crypto guy of just saying, oh, NFTs will fix this. Oh, my Bored Ape will fix this. Oh, we'll just have to get it on
fixes this. Except
Bitcoin fixes this.
But he actually, yes, his idea, I guess just to outline briefly what his idea is for the network state, and we're going to dig into it more granularly in a moment. Basically, the idea is that you have this sort of semi-stateless network where you have a whole bunch of people living all over the world who pledge their primary allegiance to the network rather than to the state. And by the state, I mean a traditional state like the United States of America.
I think the most simple way of looking at it is to use the example, because it's sort of an odd concept. It's very weird, but I feel like if you think of it as opting to join into a Discord server,
exactly,
is essentially what this is. But you can only be in one Discord server at a time.
And your Discord server has all of the rules about how your life is governed. You have to live life based on the rules your entire life.
Yeah.
Not just your life in the Discord server. You have to live your entire life everywhere based on the rules of the Discord server, and you have to presumably pay some sort of tax to the Discord server or buy into the Discord server special token, whatever. Point is, the Discord server is the thing around which your life is oriented.
Instead of living in a country.
Right.
And it's very odd that he correctly identifies raising a child costs a lot. It's extremely true, especially year after year. That continues to be more true. That's why a lot of people choose to only have one kid or 0 kids.
Right.
If for me, if someone were like, hey, you're very wise, we're consulting you for a reason. How do you think we could lower costs for families for raising a child? I would immediately be like, well, damn, this should be an easy one. Just slightly raise taxes on wealthy people and cancel all student debt for people that hold student loan debt, and for all future student loan debt, just no more of that.
Right.
But no, he's no, not fuck that. Network states, I guess. That's fucking crazy to me.
Because he sees the state as the problem. And he goes on to talk about this a little bit. He says, that there are 3 big pieces of the puzzle here. The first piece being God, religiosity. That's one of the big things that causes people to reproduce. He doesn't really come down one side or the other on religion in general. I don't know if he's religious. His parents are Hindu. I don't know about him. He also talks a little bit about government incentives, and he's like, baby bonuses, tax credits, things like that don't really work or have mixed results, which is true, by the way. But again, it's looking specifically at just government incentives as opposed to the bigger picture, because he doesn't see the role of a state to be providing for the best quality of living for the most people possible. He sees the state as something that is interloping in the lives of people through the form of taxes on the one side or incentives on the other.
Yeah, see, he it's like an inhibiting factor for him.
Right.
That's the stuff that's not good, is that taxes could theoretically be used to cancel student loan debt and lift a lot of families out of a lot of loans and
right.
payments every fucking year and interest. That's so it's like, so his thesis is God, state, and network.
Right. And he talks a little bit about on the network side of things, right? This is more his proposed solution, that like there are technological solutions beyond the stuff like artificial wombs and IVF that can be used. So I have a clip here. This is as close as he gets to being concrete about the question of how does the network state solve the birth rate problem?
Oh, I can't wait to see how the audience reacts to this. Okay.
One of the things that I'm writing about in a version 2 of it is if you form a community online and you crowdfund some territory offline, you could set up something where you have, let's say you've got even 100 people. You could set up the entire community around, let's say, remote work plus child rearing. And so you have like a centralized childcare facility, maybe a gym alongside it, so adults can work out. And, maybe there's some karma system.
Reddit karma.
Where you drop off your child and, let's say you've got 30 families. Each family has one day where they're looking after the other, people's children. And there's probably some sort of round robin set of incentives for having children, for taking care of them, and so on and so forth, where you've got essentially an extended family, trusted community where you can look after their kids and they can look after yours. And that, once you have some economies of scale, it's not just about the money, but it's about the proximity and it's about the trust. You could probably radically reduce the cost of childcare and make it easier to raise your kid in an environment where the people share their values.
The first part of what he's proposing is not a new idea at all. Community childcare is a very old idea. But then he really loses me when he gets to the second part about like, oh, well, this could just be scaled up by the network and through incentives and, we'll figure it out.
Yeah, he's essentially pitching at all times. Like, I forget the name of it, but that New Hampshire libertarian city, was that the Free State Project that was in New Hampshire?
I'm not familiar with that one.
Oh, there was like a very small libertarian city where basically it was like this community of people online were like, hey, let's all move to this one city in New Hampshire.
Was that the one that got overrun by bears?
Yes, it is exactly that one. Basically, he's pitching the same idea, but the thing is that was a long time ago. So his the difference between him now and that is that there is a lot more technology and that there will be a lot more money behind starting something like this. Is essentially what it is. He is trying to create just like a small libertarian utopian city founded on like all this money that he or others would have.
But at the same time, it's not just a small libertarian utopian city. Like the bigger picture vision for the network state is that people are actually going to be living all over the place. Like that physical geography is less important than access to the network. But this doesn't make sense when you're talking about something like childcare, because people do need to be within physical proximity of each other.
Yeah.
And the idea of an incentive structure based on, I don't know, fucking
karma,
upvote for you, good sir. Like
Fallout karma system.
This isn't a workable system. Like very clearly, if you know the first thing about how anything works, it's like he clearly has no interest in figuring out real solutions to problems, because figuring out solutions to problems would require taking a look at what other approaches to the problem have looked like. And he has his one idea, and he's like, my one idea will solve everything.
But then when he starts to give examples of like what his one idea can do, he talks about things that have more like broadly been solved for millennia, which is like the example he gives here is gyms and like community based child care. Like people struggle, it costs a lot in a lot of cases, but it's more or less a solved problem. It's not like people are like going to be wowed by this brand new incentive based karma system.
Right.
It's only going to appeal to the sort of insane weirdos that he already is and that are already in on it, you know?
And in terms of like what this would actually look like in practice, it would just be a different marketplace with a different currency.
Yes.
But that's also kind of the point, because as I was saying before, it always comes back to cryptocurrency. He just needs to come up with more ways that you can tokenize something and put it on the blockchain.
That's very important. You got to have your apes.
So to a simple lay observer like myself, you know, this might seem grossly simplistic and deeply ignorant of like everything, but he's very smart. And I wanted to really try to dig further, because here's what it was, June. I was like, it can't just be this. There has to be something more to this idea that I'm missing.
No,
like,
this is it.
It can't be this. It can't be this simple and this inane. And so I went and watched a lecture that he gave at something called Token 2049, which is, I guess, something in Dubai where people would show up and talk about like Bitcoin or whatever. I don't know. I grabbed a few clips because I think that this is the closest I've come to a cogent explanation of what this philosophy is. And hopefully by the end of it, you will understand it as well as I do. So this is a 20-minute lecture. So I want to paint a picture in your mind, a word picture, dear listener.
Yes, please. I love a picture.
I want you to picture a man standing on a circular platform, and he is fully, this man, Balaji, in case that wasn't obvious, is surrounded by, I will say, a sparsely attended audience, almost all of whom are like Arab oil sheikhs wearing keffiyehs on their heads.
The crowd, I will say, I listened to this whole thing as well. The crowd doesn't really seem to be into the whole deal either. Like, no one's really like hooting and hollering for this.
I would go so far as to argue that they are not paying attention to him at all. Every time it pans back to the crowd, they are, to a man, looking at their phones. They are so on their phones, it's not even funny.
Oh, poor Balaji.
Well, I don't know. I don't really feel too bad for him, because he's getting his chance to pitch this great network state idea to all of these guys, and maybe somebody's going to buy. Anyway, here's how he starts talking about where he sees the future going.
American empire was real and it was spectacular. Anybody here who's into Bitcoin or cryptocurrency thinks about these kinds of things. But it's ending now. And because China is strong and Peter Zeihan is wrong. I have nothing against him, but he's wrong, okay? And yet it won't solely be a Chinese century. It will also be an internet century.
Oh.
And that's what crypto is about. That's what a lot of people in this room, everybody in this room in some sense is building. And the future is really, in my view, China versus the internet. A billion-person Chinese superstate and 1,000 million-person network states. And that doesn't have to be necessarily fully oppositional. There can be cooperation, competition, or what have you. But I think those are the two heirs to empire. And China inherits the empire, but the internet inherits American values. And from there, we build the network states of the internet.
I mean, there's so much like wish casting in a sense. I like to a degree, I do actually agree with some of his analysis of like the falling American empire and the rising Chinese century. I think he's like generally not incorrect about a lot of those things, especially where we currently are under like Donald Trump. I think he is broadly correct about those things. But then like he analyzes those things and then his assumption is that because the American empire will fall, that like apparently Bitcoin societies will come in its place. I think he thinks of this as an opportunity, because if the United States really, really fucking collapses, like the economy, everything, he, in the back of his mind, he's like, oh, this is a perfect opportunity, because I don't think this is exactly how it will play out if this happens. But in his mind, he's like, the dollar will fall, but crypto won't.
Right.
So what he thinks is there will be enough fucking like Silicon Valley tech people in the United States that have fully divested from the United States to then pick up the pieces to start like a parallel society.
That's right.
In its place with crypto.
And in this world, it would more represent feudalism than anything else. That seems to be what he's going for, is techno-feudalism, where he and maybe some of his other, the Elon Musks and Mark Andreessens of the world, they get the opportunity to be the chieftains, and everybody else just kind of labors underneath them.
Yeah, I mean, that is literally what all of this is. We're saying it's like a society that you opt in and out of, but I'm sort of like saying that tongue in cheek, because it's like, if you're poor and you really have no choice, do you really have the freedom to do any of these things? If one of the societies is all the way across the continent, and you have to move to the other side of the continent to join this other freedom city, or whatever you want to fucking call it, network state, there's really no freedom. There's actual no freedom. This is just rule. This is a regression of freedom. I mean, and they don't really care too much about that, like people like Balaji.
The idea here is that land itself will become more or less irrelevant. This is the thing, actually. He talks about how you would be able to crowdfund the purchase of land, like an island or something. But then he will turn right around and, like, in the same sentence be like, but it doesn't matter where you are. No matter whether you're in fucking the US or Japan or fucking Timbuktu, you'll be able to access the network state, because access to the network matters more than physical geographical location.
Yeah, he's like your posts will be your where you live. Your posts are where you live.
It doesn't make sense, for one thing.
No,
but
I feel like he could workshop that one a little bit better. Yeah,
but it also fails to account for the fact that physical bodies in physical space require physical needs, and that the entire history of conflict in the world is generally to do with conflicts over who ought to have access to and rights for land.
This seems to be very he's buying in to an odd world where that, like, every futurist, or maybe not every, but a type of futurist who is sort of on that train of, we're going to leave our physical bodies one day. He seems to be like on that, but not in the same way.
Right.
But like in a less like physical, like a less literal way, where it's like instead of leaving the body, it's like you will not have a. See, this is the thing: is it's so fucking. It's hard to. Like, he doesn't describe it very clear at all, so it's hard to extrapolate a lot of what he is saying a lot of the time.
Yeah, he has some really cool graphs, and that's about it, because I find it hard to talk about this. I find it hard to wrap my head around this because of that very lack of clarity.
It's very theoretical.
And it's almost like he gives you the space to sort of fill in the blanks so that the network state can be whatever it is that you want it to be. And I think that's intentional on some level, but I also think that on some level it's just him genuinely not being a very deep thinker and not thinking about the implications of his proposed solution.
Well, the thing is I mean, when you said it can be whatever you want it to be, I mean, in the believer of the network state, that's quite literally what it is. Let's say Balaji gets his wish. Democracy, the state falls. There is no more state at all. There's just network states. In theory, there could be a network state of far-right fascism that, like, enslaves its local indigenous population.
Right.
And then right next to it, there could be, like, a tech utopian place full of Elon Musk type people, like, right next door, that all just, like, post memes and like have crypto. In the most literal sense of what he is proposing, it quite literally can be whatever you want it to be. It's like a Build-A-Bear of a city. It's like city Build-A-Bear.
But then how does that interact with land, right? Because if in this world where, like, again, let's extend this further, and let's say that on the one hand you have your fascist enslavement network state side by side with epic meme win LOL bacon state, right? And within a given municipality, let's say that it's 50-50 in terms of half of the people have chosen to elect residents in the one nation network state, and half of them have chosen to elect residents in the other. How do you make sure that people get water?
Yeah, I mean,
what happens when somebody enslaved by the fascist network state crosses from one house over to another house and is now on land owned by a member of the free epic bacon meme win state? Do they immediately become it doesn't make sense.
It ignores the physical reality that is land and land disputes. Yeah, it completely ignores that. It's utopian in a way that I couldn't have even imagined people could believe, you know? So I don't know if you get into this. I have you heard of this thing called Praxis Nation?
No.
So go to praxisnation.com.
Okay.
This is when I first saw this. So it's this is a perfect example. I feel like some of this is lies.
This actually kind of, I mean, I'm seeing reunite the West. First of all, the world's first digital nation. This already sounds to me like a network state type thing.
This is a network state type thing. If you just scroll down from that landing page, which very oddly says reunite the West, very strange, especially for like a universal global concept, you'll see a lot more information, like how many people have signed up and donated and joined. Sure. They're called Praxians. There's over 150,000 Praxians. I don't know how legitimate that is, of course, but you can see you can apply for Praxian citizenship and like updates about Praxis Nation and digital nations and what this means under Praxis Nation and like different like types of economic zones that they want to like in theory bring about and like a map. It's just very odd. So this is like sort of, if you're curious as to what like I think like what a network state in theory looks like to some of these people, some of the people who buy into it, the best example to look directly in the face of some of this is praxisnation.com. It feels so evil. It's so odd and it's so strange and it's ominous.
I think though what jumps out at me even more than any of that is that it's not real.
It's not real.
And I mean that very literally. Like, this isn't a real thing.
It's a Discord channel. That's all that exists currently.
Right. This is giving me a bad feeling, June. This is giving me the fear.
when I first found Praxis Nation, this was actually like one of my introductions to the concept of the network state. Was me finding this website maybe like earlier this year, earlier in 2025, and I saw this and I got like the most doom pilled about the future and the state of the world than I had ever felt up until that point. I like saw a vision of like the worst possible future.
Well, I want to take a sec now to pull it back to Balaji, because I think one of the things that indicates how unserious he is and this whole thing is about countering nationalism in the traditional sense, right, is how he sounds when he starts to talk about how this concept of a network state would be able to defeat, say, the growing power of China. Here's how he sees this all playing out.
Of course, what I'd say to that is actually I understand hard power very well. China has it, and the U.S. doesn't anymore, right? And so against something like the Chinese drone armada, you have to actually think about Gandhian nonviolence, and you have to think about other ways of basically protecting freedom. For example, no amount of violence can solve certain kinds of math problems. That's what encryption, that's what Bitcoin is, right? So you have to think about protecting these things in a different way, right? And Bitcoin has no armies, but it is stronger than armies because it can flip countries.
What?
What does that mean? What does that mean? That means nothing. What do you mean? I also love the idea that one day there will be a Bitcoin army. The shields will have a little Bitcoin on it. They will wear Doge like fucking helmets. General Doge.
The general will be that one breakdancing dad.
The thing he believes in is so ridiculous. But like, I feel like this is what all of the tech world sort of is just sort of like exaggerating and lying about what your concept and what your thing is in hopes of getting people to send you money.
Absolutely. And I think too that it's the sort of thing that you could only cook up if you were so far removed from what the actual material reality of the world is, in terms of just like the very fundamental basics of what a human being needs to be able to survive. It's things as simple as water and housing and food that isn't poisonous, you know?
And remembering where this all started for him, at least in his story that he gave, is this all started, this journey of where he is now, started because he was bullied in school.
Right.
Absurd. Just absurd.
Okay, you say it's absurd.
I think it's a little goofy.
Okay, you're allowed to say that, but just listen to this and maybe you'll turn your opinion around, okay?
And this is kind of a model for how the network states of the internet could emerge, right? Basically, if you think about it, just like we have a version 3.0 in the form of Bitcoin, we went from gold to fiat to digital gold, right? We have version 3.0 where we go from the United Kingdom of England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland, the United States of America, and then the network states of the internet, right? A new birth of freedom.
What?
And we can do this just with internet-first technologies. You literally start a society, you network it, with other societies, and then it just grows over time. And it can come from very modest beginnings. If you go back and look at that 1630 slide, like Massachusetts, Virginia, that started with like a few dozen, a few hundred people. These great things start from small things. Moreover, with the internet, those small things can become big things very fast. If you think about how many years it took for WhatsApp to get to 1 billion users, for ChatGPT to get to 1 billion users, networks can grow very, very quickly in this age once you get, quote, product market fit. So you can start small, think big, and we can actually build lots of startup societies, and then we can network them together over the next 10, 20, 30 years.
So I guess in this model, the natalist childcare network state that he mentioned at Natalcon 2023 would like build out around the idea of everybody in the network state is compensated for doing childcare and blah, 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 blah. That's the core tentpole of the society. And then that can link with Elon Musk's epic bacon fucking thing, right? Like, and then we have trade between these states, and I don't like all you have to do, it's not that hard, right? Like you don't even have to know anything about political theory. You just have to play a game of fucking Civilization once, and you will understand that this isn't how things work.
No, he wants to create like wandering tribes again, is like what he wants. He wants us to revert to like tribalism in like a weird like techno crypto fucking future. It's just ridiculous. I would love to meet someone in real life that I could talk to that buys into this, that is a true believer of this theory. Maybe I would love to just talk to Balaji and just be like, hey, man.
I will say this. He goes on podcasts all the time, so we might be able to get him on.
I'm sure he does. The thing is like, that's what he has to do. He has to, like, this isn't like a thing that will happen unless he can brute force it, you know?
Right.
Like, that's part of his strategy, I think. But I would just love to be like, hey, man, you don't really like this, like you don't really believe this, right? Like, you know, this is like a little far-fetched and ridiculous, right? It doesn't seem like he thinks it's ridiculous in any way.
I would be very curious to see what would happen if he were pressed in that way, because he sort of occupies a position now where people don't ask him questions like that.
Yeah.
You're not going to find somebody interviewing him and being like, bro, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, no, you get a lot of people that are like, "Oh, yeah, that's crazy.
That's
wow,
so interesting.
Wow, that's so interesting. What a weird world that we could live in."
Never thought about
that's
it that
crazy.
way.
Wow, yeah. Just the agreeable fucking like losers that interview him typically.
So at this point, you're probably wondering, okay, I understand the vision. I think it's great. I understand. I understand the key principles of the network state and networking. I'm on board. I want to see this happening, but how to execute, how to make it start happening now, how to immanentize the eschaton. And I will tell you, he's building a cult. He's doing it right now.
Yeah.
And this is where I wanted to talk a little bit about the network school. June, is this something you were familiar with?
Absolutely. No, I first found out about it earlier this year. From what I understand, there's not a lot of stuff out about exactly what they got up to in the network school, like the like getaway that they did. It's probably a combination of like those weird like masculinity things where it's like, okay, we have to do a cold bath of ice and like it'll cleanse our spirits and it'll like make us like more open to, I don't know, it's some like weird shit. All of this to say, I know Brian Johnson is involved. Mm-hmm. That dude's trying to live forever. He injects his son's blood into his bloodstream, and he keeps track of his son's boners and his own boners.
That's not a joke, by the way. If you are listening, if you have not heard of this guy up until right now, first of all, lucky you.
Yeah.
But secondly, these are all true things that this guy does, and he goes on the record regularly to talk about it.
Yeah, no, he has admitted to doing these things.
I wouldn't say admitted. I would say he's boasted about doing.
He proudly states every single day of his life that he does these things. But no, all of this to say is I can only imagine the insane shit they get up to. It's probably absurd.
Well, I looked into it a bit, and there aren't a ton of accounts of exactly what is going on there. And the website is also a bit less than clear. But what I can tell you is that the network school is a campus in Forest City, Malaysia, which is just over the channel from Singapore, just west. And 2024 was when they accepted their first cohort. And when it came to accepting the cohort, he had some very specific ideas in mind. And June, I just want you to read this here. This is a quote from a Wired article that was published pretty recently.
According to his Substack post introducing the network school, these requirements include an admiration of Western values, seeing Bitcoin as the successor to the U.S. Federal Reserve, and trusting AI over human courts and judges. And this is a quote. It is for those who believe in technology, harmony, internationalism, and capitalism, Srinivasan's Substack post reads. It's for those who want Silicon Valley without San Francisco.
I mean, first of all, Silicon Valley doesn't include San Francisco, technically, Balaji. San Francisco is...
also odd, because like I feel like a lot of these tech people have certainly taken over like San Francisco.
Yeah, but they hate San Francisco. That's the thing. They hate the fucking city. They hate it with their lives.
They do. And I don't really understand why. Like, why? What is it about? I've only briefly visited San Francisco. It seems like they're surrounded by all of themselves, and they're around so many people who are just like them, and they're still miserable.
I think it's because of the possibility of the application of state power, whether it's from the city of San Francisco or the state of California. They can't stand being regulated in any way, shape, or form. And that's also why they're building, or at least trying to build, the California Forever. I'm sure you heard about that, right?
Yes. Oh my God, I have.
The like development project that they bought up a whole bunch of land inland of the bay with this intention of like building their techno-utopian community there. This is in Solano County, and now the people who live there are like, hey, we don't actually want this built here at all. And they're kind of having to now fight some of the most powerful and wealthy people in the world to prevent this, what tech sees as utopian, but I think arguably will really be dystopian community right in their fucking backyards.
And that's the thing. I mean, at a base level, what a lot of this is, what a lot of the network state is a deep hatred of regulations.
Yeah.
That's so much of what this is. That's why a lot of the times when they are starting to build some of these different network states, because there are some network states that are out there. There's a couple that currently exist, very small. They're not that large. I think did you watch that little documentary that I sent you covering that one?
Oh no,
I
didn't see that you sent me that. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'll just summarize it really quick. But it's a very interesting look. This journalist, she goes to a network state that is basically within Honduras.
Okay.
And she goes into the city. She talks to some of the people that are workers there, like construction, and she talks to the mayor of it's called Prospera. The network state is called Prospera. And she talks to this mayor, and the way that this mayor talks in the city to her, he is essentially like a tech guy. He calls it my city. Like the way he talks about what this place is like he talks about this place like it's a tech startup company,
which he effectively owns, right?
Yeah. And he talks about how you move to this network state and you can choose regulations of any country in the world. And she also goes to talk to some Honduran locals who have dealt with this network state encroachment, because it's not all just one collective region. There's like a couple of different areas all in Honduras that they are occupying, like miles apart. And a lot of the locals are so fed up with it.
Interesting. That's actually not dissimilar from Network School, which is on this island, which, like I said, is right next to Singapore, that actually was originally built on reclaimed land. Like, it's all infill.
Yeah.
And was originally being developed as like a mega housing project, mostly with Chinese money. And then a lot of the capital evaporated. And so you have these huge fucking towers on the island where nobody lives. And so they were able to then sort of get this land, utilize this land at a much lower price than they otherwise would have been able to.
And that's why you're going to see a lot of these network states that do exist or will possibly come into creation all across the world in areas that don't have a lot of development, because in a lot of places like Malaysia and Honduras, regulations tend to be a little bit lighter. It's easier to just throw a bunch of money to some of these poorer countries and be like, hey, we're buying this land. We're not going to be you. We're our own thing. And a lot of the time they're just trying to make that work. So that's why you'll see this pop up more so in lesser developed regions.
And in terms of what you get to do at Network School, you get to go to the gym.
Yay! That makes sense.
That's pretty much it.
Sense. Yeah, that's
you get to be on your computer and go to the gym. Those are the two things you can do at network school.
I do love that the highest aspiration for Balaji in all these clips that we played is that they can maybe have an alternative, which is just a worse version of childcare. You can work out, you can have a gym in your community, and you can post.
That's it.
Like post. Yeah, that's really all he's sort of laid out in his vision for the future.
You get to pay $1,500 a month for this privilege.
What a steal.
I know.
Holy shit.
And if you're particularly special, if you're a real special little boy, they also offer a $100,000 paid fellowship. So they pay you $100,000. And this offer is open to people, and I'm quoting right here from the website, people who will relocate to our network school campus on an island near Singapore for 1 year to focus on their projects and lock in.
Lock in. See, this is, again, where I would love to see behind that closed door, see what they talk about, see what sort of things they offer to you, because that's where the real conversations are happening, of course. The like $1,500 a month, that's just for the rubes. That's them just providing like some of these people like a refuge or like a hope for like having to be like being able to be on the ground floor for this project. But the $100,000 paid fellowships, that's where the real stuff is happening.
Well, it's like Natalcon, right? We were saying,
exactly.
You can pay and go to the sessions. But then if you want to go to the closed door session, which is off the record, you have to pay more and you're going to be vetted.
And it's so interesting how in a lot of these things, even going back to some of the earlier episodes that we've done, there is always an aspect of all of these different groups or different cults or communities where there is an elevated status where you pay them an ungodly amount of money for the privilege of getting this like insider knowledge.
Right.
That is like all of these things are just like scams or MLMs on different scales.
Oh, yeah. Unless you're one of those lucky ones who's getting the $100,000 grant, in which case they're paying you, but that's because they know that you can be entrusted with the secret knowledge, and they know, or at least they hope, that there will be the ability to profit off of your thing in the future, right? That like these people who are coming in, they're going to build the next big app, and then network school is going to be able to be the seed money and get a huge exit later on.
Absolutely.
Because I've got another quote here, right?
Ooh, yeah.
This is Balaji talking about the patronage network that he is trying to build. And why don't you go ahead and read this one?
Many network schoolers will attend with the intent of eventually starting their own societies using the social, digital, and physical templates we develop at Network School. He writes, "We intend to fund the best." Yeah, he is. This is him, and I don't think it'll work. Is the ultimate thing?
No,
because
I don't either.
Going against the power of a state is a large effort. That's like they're going to have to hope for wide scale collapse that will just never be recovered, and I don't know if that's going to happen. But essentially, what all of this is I mean, not only him accumulating a lot of money from a lot of dumb people, but he's trying to expand on this pipe dream of an idea that he has and build this like alternative ecosystem that will eventually, in the end, after a certain amount of time, surpass the state.
And I think even if we do see the collapse of the United States as we know it, right, which I do think is in the cards. I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm just saying it could.
Yeah.
It's not going to be replaced with like a panoply of network states that each have their own ideas and their own visions and their own non-contiguous borders, right? It's going to be balkanization. It's what we saw in the former Soviet Union throughout the 90s and early 2000s. This is not the way that states work because there are certain things that a state needs to provide, first and foremost among them being physical security. And there is nothing about this concept that provides for any aspect of physical security, whether you're talking about basic daily needs or self-defense. It just can't do it. So it's not a workable solution.
That's something he doesn't really address at all. And you know what's like really odd about all of this to me is like his inclusion at Natalcon just makes no sense to me in any real way. Because like, sure, he was earlier in his life involved with a lot of this like sort of like healthcare technology,
right?
But he is a crazy crank tech guy now who doesn't really fucking talk about anything that's the core tenets of like what these natalists really care about. Like at least a lot of these people, at Natalcon specifically, do touch on like the birth rate in like even a philosophical sense and what that means. But he doesn't even really seem to like enjoy engaging with that.
Not really. No, his obsession, his single-minded obsession, is with his idea, and I guess I did want to pull this back now to just talking more broadly about the way that this does or does not intersect with natalism, because I agree with you that there's not a great deal of overlap between these concepts, but I do think that this kind of guy in the Valley, and there are so many of them, are also, in many cases, the same type of guy who is most interested in the question of demographic shift and declining birth rates. So what's that all about?
Yeah.
Is it just that they're really racist? Like, I think that is a piece of it, to be fair. You don't get this obsession with, like, Western society without it. But I think there must be something more to it as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he is among a large cohort of individuals who are constantly thinking about this. I mean, like, of course, like, prime example being Elon Musk, of these, like, crazy tech guys who seem to care a lot about this as an issue. And I think what it goes back to, especially with his presence at Natalcon, is he views his inclusion and his like the people in that space's openness to him as an opportunity. I think he sort of understands that this is a fringe thing. Natalism is more mainstream now, but it's still sort of a fringe thing. The people that talk about it very explicitly is still sort of fringe.
Right.
You know, Natalcon 2025, a lot of heavy hitters in terms of like the right-wing sphere, not widely attended. It's a very small fringe thing, but he views that as a very necessary alliance for the future of his project. And
Definitely.
I think that's what's very interesting and why we've seen this broader sort of libertarian right alignment recently in the last like 2 years with the far right, because they view it as an opportunity. And in some cases, I think even... And I don't think they have ever admitted this. This is just me sort of inferring some of this, is they view their alliance with the far right as an opportunity even more broadly, because they understand that the far right is leading to the degradation of society. I think Balaji probably, I mean, I don't know how he voted.
I think he probably didn't vote, if I had to guess. But who knows?
Yeah. But I do think what he is seeing now makes him very happy. He sees the weakening of U.S. colonial power, like the very hard power of the United States. He sees how that's degrading under Donald Trump. He sees an opportunity to strike. This pleases him. I think this is all sort of not according to plan for him necessarily. I don't think there's like a cabal of these people like pulling the strings necessarily. I think they want people to believe that that's the case. But I think he's eating good right now in terms of like the fears of the collapse of the United States.
Definitely. And that fear of the collapse of the U.S. government and the fear of the collapse of what you can call it the Western world, white population, whatever, all of these ideas. These are not necessarily the same thing, but they're very close to each other. And I think that one of the things that you're going to start seeing in general is stuff like this, where you have people who are not ideologically committed to the natalist project per se, but they see a movement that is ascendant, and they see a lot of people who are already ideologically primed to get on board with whatever the thing is that they are selling.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the big thing that I take away from looking into Balaji's whole deal and how he intersects with the natalist movement.
I completely agree. I guess my surprise is just that they willingly are like, yeah, let's have him back 2 times. Like, why? Like, that's such an odd... Like, I get it from his perspective, but from them, it's like, I don't know. I think it is one of those things where he has a lot of money and he's very willing to fund these different things.
Right.
There is that tenuous alliance, I think, with both of these groups. They know what they're doing.
Yep. And they're probably hoping to get a little bit of that money. And who knows? Maybe he said some stuff behind those closed doors at the closed door sessions. We don't know.
Until, of course, we speak at Natalcon 2026 and get invited to those closed
That's right.
spaces.
Which both of those things are definitely going to happen. Until then, we'll see you next week.
See ya.
Bye.